2022 was a pretty good year for movies, the best since 2019, with the latter end of 2021 picking up the scraps left over from the... And with the next blockbuster season looming over the horizon...
Where's the goddamn horizon?
It's a good time as any to rank my top 10 films of last year. We had a bit of everything. We had a moonfall, and we had a regular fall.
Do a flip!
We had a Black Phone, Adam, and Panther. We had Glenn Powell flying a military jet. Twice. So it's clear to see that the cinematic landscape of 2022 really covered every available demographic. If you haven't skipped ahead to see what ends up being number one, and who am I kidding? If you know me, you already know exactly what movie is at number one. But be patient.
We get there when we get there!
But if you're still here and you end up making it to the end of the video and start wondering why Morbius, starring the one and only, isn't on this list, I simply didn't see it. I was busy that weekend, just like everyone else. And here are all the other notable films I haven't seen for one reason or another. I am but one man. I cannot watch every movie. Otherwise, this video would be out in the summer and we know there's bigger things to be covering then. But I did watch Moonfall and I quite enjoyed it. The moon did indeed fall. So let's not waste any more time and get right into the top 10. I think a good number of people know my stance on the first Avatar, that is just Dune stripped down to its bare bones.
Yo, I'm really sorry, okay?
What is wrong with you? Why are you blue?
Ugh.
And it still is, but the technical marvel of it and the luscious setting set it apart enough for me that I actually like it a decent amount now. So when I went to rewatch it in IMAX back in September, I was going to be convinced. To be convinced, to be excited for Avatar: Time to Get Wet. And you know what? I was. And then the hype for the movie started to roll in, and I'm happy to say it delivered. In my top 10 of the year, no less. There's no better way to say this than I was absolutely swept up by the magic of Pandora delivered masterfully by the master that is James Cameron.
Hot diggity dog! This place is magnificent.
Oh, but no one cares about Avatar anymore.
Well, we were wrong about that one, weren't we? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the story is groundbreaking or that the characters are incredibly well developed. It's just a grand old time on Pandora. The world building continues to be gargantuan and the effects, best we've ever seen? Probably best we've ever seen. When you're watching the first film, you can kind of tell that they're not really there. The facial expressions are often quite rubbery and they are some lanky looking fuckers. But this one, it's an upgrade of improbable proportions. Just look at this shot. The water, the fingers, or this one, or any of them.
Hello, how are you? I am under the water.
It's simply insane. Ever since probably The Jungle Book, we've been less and less impressed by CGI. Maybe around The Lion King, we thought that CGI had reached a peak. It simply couldn't get any better than that. Well, Jim Cameron said, hold my Ikran, and he went and did this. I don't even want to think about the man hours that went into creating this water side of Pandora, or this guy's hair. I think we're especially impressed by the effects because other certain big name movies have gotten sloppy in some of their effects work in recent memory. So this tech demo of a film stands out even more. And maybe if these films are just grand tech demos with very similar stories every time, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. I think me and most people who saw this will be more than ready to go back in just under 2 years' time. Looks like we're 2 for 2 for post-pandemic December blockbusters. I wonder what we have this year to fill the December gap between Avatar sequels. Ambulance, or as it truly meant to be called, Ambu-Los Angeles, is... Wait, before you click off.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
This movie is tailor-made for me. Michael Bay is one of my favorite directors, and do with that information what you will, and this is the ultimate display of Bayos, which is of course the term used to coin the very on-brand chaos in a Michael Bay movie. And Ambulance is jam-packed with it. Let's break it down. You have the city of Los Angeles, sunsets, explosions, cars going fast. If you know me, you already know how much that does it for me. The 360-degree hero shots, references to his own movies.
I got an idea. We going together like bad boys.
Out of the car.
Product placement, which, by the way, I've never understood why that's such a big talking point in movies. Like, it's just a product. Michael Bay started out directing commercials, even won an award for it too. I like to think those are just simply homages to his roots. What else? Oh yeah, an incredibly angry man always yelling at everyone. If looking for further examples, see The Bad Boys, or Sam Witwicky, Cade Yeager, Daniel Lugo, not to mention the entire cast of Armageddon. And proudly introducing... drone shots. Truly, it's like Michael Bay got a drone for Christmas and decided he was going to use it in his next movie with absolutely no restraint. Throw it all together, you have Ambu Los Angeles. What I loved about this movie was how it was able to keep up the tension and angst for its entire runtime. Almost entirely. Maybe it was 15 minutes too long, but whatever. The movie jumps right into the action, and the onboard dynamic between our three leads is what gives the film its heart. Because it has heart. This is a tale of two brothers against the world, as Danny Sharp himself says.
We're not the bad guys. We're just the guys trying to get home.
It's not exactly Shakespeare, but it gets you through the film. Guys, I know it's not the greatest or the smartest movie ever made, and I think Michael Bay knows that as well. Because why else would you have this tonal shift of a song intercut if you weren't taking yourself too seriously? At least I hope he knows. I love this movie, and I think it deserves a place in the top 10 movies of last year. This writing alone sends it up the rankings for me.
We're a locomotive, we don't stop.
In a cinematic era of CGI overload, Michael Bay is what we need more of. In a time when war is a very prevalent topic in the news, Netflix's latest international feature, remake, or readaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front might be a harder watch for some. And while it might not offering anything overly new to the war genre, it is simply a very well-made film. It's far from your typical, ooh, war bad kind of movie. It takes its time. What I took away from this most of all is what a terrible cycle war is, and that's instilled into the audience from the very first scene, when the coat of a dead soldier is retrieved and handed to the next kid in line who is none the wiser as to the horrors he's about to experience. There's a heart-wrenching scene of school officials spurring them on to fight for the fatherland, brainwashing them and romanticizing the war. It's a very well-written and well-structured film. It's the kind that makes me want to read the book, as I hear it's very good. And we follow our main character Paul Baumer in his journey through the war, and it's through his character how the war is portrayed. We see him go from an innocent schoolboy who goes and forges a parent's signature in order to enlist to a soldier and a changed man throughout the runtime. And because we spend so much time with him and his friends through simple scenes, just people talking and joking, is why we're so invested. I've now reached an age where in war movies, these young guys being portrayed are younger than me, so things like that put things into perspective for me. I'm here stressing about lab reports I'm behind on, while these guys are marching on their way to death. Most war movies sway to one side, the so-called good guys, and this film being from a German perspective is a rare sight to behold, but it never plays specific sides. The only side it does play is the one opposite of war, and maybe that's the one thing that everyone can take away from this. It's technically marvelous, it's emotionally sound, it's everything that asks from a grim, dark war picture of its kind, and it's one of the best in recent memory, and one of the best of the year. Jaws. Jordan Peele in his somewhat short filmmaking career has seemingly already shot through the mainstream audience, and he's made a name for himself as an event-level director. At least that's how I see it. And Nope is his most grand endeavor yet. So while I still think Get Out is his best, and frankly I don't think he'll ever be able to beat that, Nope is not at all what I was expecting going in, and I mean that in the best way possible. What I thought would be, ooh, cool, aliens and stuff, turned out to be, oh, aliens. It delivered on the horror, leaving me absolutely frozen in shock in the theater, especially during one scene, and that kind of dead silence from so many people hadn't been felt in a very long time. But perhaps most surprisingly, I did not expect it to deliver on the grand adventure Spielberg-esque spectacle side of things. But I swear, man, ever since this movie came out, I've been seeing that word being used more and more, and I'm seriously starting to hate it. There's simply so much that I loved about this movie. The characters and their dynamics, the cinematography, the suspense surrounding the whole thing, and the third act absolutely pays off everything that was being set up through the aforementioned Jaws-like feel to it. There's certain shots and pieces of the score that fill you with this childlike wonder, as well as that adventure side that came in, which I did not expect from a Jordan Peele movie. It's fascinating to see him evolve as a filmmaker, and I hope he continues to do so for many more years to come. Whatever his next endeavor is, I will be there no matter what.
Blanc, I saw you go in the engine room. You're the important imposter. We all know it.
If Benoit Blanc playing Among Us doesn't quite sum up pandemic filmmaking in one scene, I'm not sure what does. I don't know if it's brilliant or terrible, but I like to think it's the former. As for the rest of the movie, well, it's up here for a reason, isn't it? Glass Onion, the sequel to the surprise phenom Knives Out, had everyone's expectations through the roof, including mine, and well, maybe it didn't quite meet them, but I still loved it. Rian Johnson brings his A game, and Daniel Craig has turned it up a notch with that
Kentucky Fried Foghorn Leghorn drawl.
He delivers plenty more quotable lines, and he has yet another cast of colorful characters to play around with. Looking back, perhaps some of them weren't utilized as well as maybe they could have, but in return we got more time with Benoit Blanc.
I'll make that deal. How about you, Yudovich? You make that deal?
I'd make that deal.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
Some of the main criticisms I've heard is that the mystery was too easy, or you could guess the killer, and to that I say,
that is hooey.
I don't necessarily love the first movie because it's an overly intricate mystery. In fact, I think these movies are actually anti-mystery, and I love it for everything else. The cast, the ludicrous things coming out of Benoit's mouth.
What were the overheard words by the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?
Nobody tried to kill you, you vainglorious buffoon.
They're very vibey movies, and as long as they don't drop off too much, I could watch a lot more.
Actually, can I have 5 more of these little blonde bitches?
But one more would absolutely be enough. I laughed, I went, and I had a grand old time with Glass Onion, which is exactly what I wanted.
Look at this I found. A stick with a hook. What would you use it for, I wonder? To hook things or a length of a stick away?
I've seen some people describe The Banshees of Inisherin as a feel-bad movie. And you know what? That's exactly what it is. But it does that in the best possible way. The trio of McDonough, Farrell, and Gleason have proved to be absolutely brilliant in the past, and this outing manages to turn out even better than their last. As I mentioned, this is a feel-bad movie, but maybe not completely, because it's sad or full of despair as it is, and it does very well with being both those things. It fills the gaps with some hilarious jokes. There's absolutely nothing like British, or in this case British-Irish humor, and McDonough's script had me dying multiple times. The best jokes are the most simple and subtle ones, and Banshees has plenty. A dark comedy for the ages. But that's all just there to help move the story along, which is really quite tragic in a way, but McDonough makes it work all the same. Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Kerry Condon, and Barry I don't know, okay? And I know that you don't know either. I've googled it and got no less than 3 separate answers. Not even he fully knows how his name is pronounced, so we'll just call him Barry. Anyway, they all give incredible performances, they've all been nominated for Oscars, rightly so, and it's further proof that we should just let Colin Farrell be Irish more often.
Kids stab, girls shoot, boys punch, grown-ups fight with their heads. That's where the real battle is. Up here, in the grave.
Now, this may not be one of the biggest earning movies of the year, but it's certainly one of the best, and I implore you to watch it. The moment I knew I absolutely had to see this movie was when I saw a clip from the Taylor Swift and Martin McDonagh Directors on Directors video, where Taylor asked him this.
And this art represents the fingers. What do you think the fingers is a symbolism for, is what I'm trying to say.
I know, I just thought it was funny.
Really? You just thought it was funny?
Now that is my kind of filmmaker. The Banshees of Inisherin, as sad as it is funny, if it wins Best Picture, I won't mind.
Who is your favorite fearless hero?
No, I simply refuse to believe it. How is the Puss in Boots sequel the best animated movie of the year and one of the best of the year in general? It's at number 4. I hadn't seen the first film until now, but I knew it was never universally praised. So how did this late 2022 release become somewhat of a phenomenon? It's certainly taken over as meme of the month on TikTok. But other than just being, haha, look at the funny cat, it's genuinely an incredible film. Now, DreamWorks don't have the craziest of track records. For every How to Train Your Dragon, there's a Trolls or a Boss Baby or two, but they do have those hits that when they hit, they absolutely challenge the best of Disney or Pixar. And Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the latest of that. Watching this movie, I can feel and see the freedom of the animators, the artists, and the writers seeping through the screen. They're able to go crazy with the animation and not be restricted to the frankly tired 3D animation we've come to know so well these days. Just look at this comparison between the various Puss in Boots models and you tell me which is more pleasing to the eyes or artistically expressive. They're able to give Puss a great arc, and I know it's been talked to death on Twitter, but I think brain support and even have him suffer a panic attack, which is portrayed brilliantly, potentially exposing a younger audience to the fact that anyone can experience them, even such one fearless hero like Puss in Boots. All they set out to do was make a good movie and use the animated medium to its fullest to tell an awesome story with memorable characters and imagery that feels like it was made with pure passion for the animated form. You can't tell me Lightyear, also a spin-off of a 4-film franchise, was made with all the freedom of the world from the higher-ups or the same kind of passion. In a time when animated movies are often dismissed as just kids' movies, we desperately need movies like Puss in Boots, like Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, that push the boundaries of storytelling and animation. And it has Florence Pugh going full Jason Statham as Goldilocks if all that wasn't enough to convince you. I would like to thank Into the Spider-Verse for blowing the animated medium wide open 5 years ago, and it looks like we're now seeing the potential ripple effect of that movie. I wonder how the next 5 years of animation will look like. If Puss in Boots The Last Wish is any indication, the medium's in safe hands. Now, can we please get Shrek 5?
Something's in my ass.
Somehow, the Batman lived up to our sky-high expectations.
This was the no-brainer. This was the banker. This was the one that couldn't fail. This was one that's never failed.
DC proved to us once more that even though they don't know what the hell they're doing with their shared cinematic universe, that they can absolutely drop the ball over and over again, they can, on occasion, make something amazing. The Batman is exactly that. The most grounded take on Batman, yet somehow even more grounded than The Dark Knight, and yet completely different in its approach. A graphic novel ripped straight from the pages, an emo Batman, and a Reddit Riddler. There's something here for everyone. The story is intricate and filled with plenty of characters that stand out, I'm sure will be developed further in sequel. But that's the beautiful thing about this movie. It can completely stand on its own. There's definitely setups and hints, and of course we're getting the Penguin show, but this could just be a standalone gem that exists. But of course, yep, we want one more. We all want more. That's the terrible thing about us consumers. As soon as we get one thing, we immediately want another. It's just never enough. Now, I will admit, on rewatch, especially watching it at home, man, does it drag at parts. But that also lets the movie breathe. It allows for the audience to live in its world and let the characters develop. And there's plenty of development for the titular character that everyone seems to be on board with. But let's get more of this kind of Bruce Wayne in the sequel. And I have to mention that Batmobile chase, because even if the rest of the movie sucked, that was simply sensational. And I haven't had a bigger smile on my face from one single scene throughout the year.
What's that? The tumbler? Oh, you wouldn't be interested in that.
And I have to say, this is my favorite take on Batman. It's dark, it's gritty, and it's dirty. A Batman movie should feel dirty. No, not that kind of dirty. But is it still better than The Dark Knight? Yeah, might take back that statement. But it's up there. It's epic, it's lasting, it's fresh, it's Batman.
What the fuck is going on?
Every year there seems to be that one under-the-radar movie that no one was really expecting anything from that goes on to become an absolute phenomenon in the pop culture scene. In 21, it might have been, I don't actually know, Free Guy?
Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, or as I like to call it, was that movie. While I haven't revisited this film since I saw it back in May, it has stuck in my mind ever since due to its sheer ingenious absurdness. A good way to describe this movie is to use the hot/crazy graph a la Barney Stinson, except replace crazy with absurd and hot with creative. And the same rule applies. You must be above the line. If you're going to be this absurd, you must be equally creative in order to make a good movie. I am not basing this on anything, this is simply the way I am making it up as I go along, and is as creative as it is absurd. The multiverse, an already fairly absurd thing to be doing in a movie with a budget of only $25 million. With the rocks and the piñatas and the raccoonie, and then you have a way to access those abilities of your alternate universe selves. You have to do increasingly more unlikely things like chugging a bottle of soda or sitting on a suspicious looking award or giving yourself a bunch of paper cuts, and oh my god, watching him do that was worse than any Saw trap I've seen. And I watched every Saw movie last year. I don't know, but I find all that pretty creative thinking from the Daniels. And sure, it starts a little slow and the last few scenes feel a tad dragged out or repetitive, but when the credits roll, all that seems like tiny nitpicks to an otherwise insane movie that never lets up. And I haven't even mentioned this, but it's equally as touching and sincere as all of the insanity that ensues. Maybe that's another graph we can use. And with the Academy Awards just around the corner, any award this movie wins, which it looks like it's gonna win Best Picture, it will be absolutely deserving. Now, before we get to my number one movie of 2022, which, come on, you guys know what it is, here are some honorable mentions that just about missed out on the top 10. Bullet Train, loved it in the theater, loved it less at home. Hustle, a really great sports movie starring the Sandman. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies will come to be a defining Gen Z movie with a cast of very hateable characters with some of the best or worst dialogue of the year.
Your parents are upper middle class.
Elvis, yet another music biopic, but one that's heralded by an incredible performance and plenty of panache, and it looks like he's gonna be winning Best Actor. The Menu, a classic Eat the Rich satire with the nuttiest of Fiennes performances. Aftersun, a very emotional and somber story between father and daughter with a hard-hitting ending. RRR, my first trip into Indian cinema, and I had no idea what I was missing out on. Bones and All, a brilliantly disturbing story that tells me I need to watch the rest of Guadagnino's filmography. Tar, an all-time performance from Cate Blanchett and a terrific showcase of downfall. And finally, Babylon. Enough to discuss that it warrants its own video, but just about misses out on the top 10. Tried to do a little too much, but still so much that I loved. And while the movie was quite bad, it would be unjust if I didn't include this moment of 2022 cinematic brilliance.
Sorceress! Fortify your mind!
Yeah, somehow I don't think anyone is surprised that movie named Top Gun Maverick ended up as my number one movie of the year. This completely apolitical, non-military propaganda movie took the world by storm, and Tom Cruise was hailed the savior of cinema. And you know what? If it takes a Top Gun and Avatar sequel to knock Marvel down a notch, I think that's something we can get behind.
Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary.
There's a lot that goes into why Maverick has landed on the top of my list. One being the Cruise himself, one of my favorite actors working at the moment, and whenever he puts out a movie these days, he's putting the audience first every single time. Just look at these thank you videos he does. The madman. He knows we're going to his movies because we want to see him doing these crazy things. And sure, he's not doing anything particularly insane himself in this one compared to the last few and up-and-coming Mission Impossible films, but he and every one of those actors are sitting in those jets that are flying for real, and that is why you watch this movie. And that real factor is what set this apart from a lot of the CGI-filled blockbusters you get these days. The Crew said it best.
Our extraordinary cast and crew gave it their all to bring you the most immersive, authentic, and entertaining cinematic experience. There's real jets, there's real popcorn.
And even when taking into account these incredible adrenaline-pumping action scenes that I can watch over and over again, which I'm still astounded by the length that they went to for these scenes, that surely can't be the only reason so many people watched and loved this movie. There's emotion, there's humor, there's vibes, there's a Tom Cruise run. That's worth the price of admission alone. And did anyone else think he was gonna simply punch that helicopter in the face? I'm sure he could have if he wanted to, but that wouldn't give us that last epic dogfight with the most insane maneuver you will ever see.
Oh, but the mission is just Star Wars.
And you know what? I really don't mind that. The simplicity of the mission allows us to emotionally invest into the Maverick Rooster storyline, which only makes the ending hit that much harder. It's only the second movie I've seen 3 times in theaters. I will see it many more times. It's a very look movie, and it's a wonderful surprise that it ended up as my number 1 movie of the year. And there you have it, my top 10 movies of 2022. A damn good year for film, I have to say, and 2023 looks to be the first since 2019 where it truly looks packed with blockbusters, and of course, the non-busters.
It's not a real word. It kind of sounds like one, but it's just entirely made up.
Some I may cover, some I may not. We'll just have to see how things go. Now, if you've made it to the end of the video, comment down below your favorite movies of last year, and if your number 1 isn't the Batman, Top Gun Maverick, or... I will be especially happy because I think they are the most common answers this year, but for a good reason, of course. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog. Comment below what videos you'd like to see, as I'm starting somewhat fresh here, so any suggestions are welcome, as I only have about 4 decent ideas to go on, so that would be much appreciated. But if nothing else, I'll see you with the best that 2023 has to offer.